So, Paul, we'll start with your team news for the weekend. Have you picked up any new injuries from last weekend's victory?
No, we're all good. Said that we did have a bit of a concern over a player that I'm not going to name, but he's trained today and come through training fine. So unless anything overnight, particularly flares up, we should be all good in the same squad available to me as last week. Evan Corey returned to training today, his first session, so certainly wouldn't be in contention or anything. But in terms of the treatment room, we were only Mishi in there, so hopefully we can keep that way and make certainly the physio room a quite sparse place.
How are Ben Fox and Max Wright then after another week of training under their belt?
Yeah, they're good. They're training. Obviously, the sort of positive problem that I have is a bigger squad and trying to keep everyone involved and feeling part of it, and got some tough decisions to make. There's going to be some good players certainly that don't make the matchday squad and may not even travel with us. Doesn't mean that they're out of sight, out of mind, but we can only obviously use a certain amount. So I've just got to keep drilling the message home that they are, unless they've been told otherwise, they're part of the group, they're part of the plans, and to be ready when they're called upon. I think Sean Scannell a couple of times recently has been an example of that, and that could be Max Wright's turn, might be Ben Fox's turn, it could be one of the other squad members' turn that don't think they're going to be involved. All of a sudden they're in, for whatever reason, whether it's the performances in training, whether it's something that I've identified in the opposition, that it's just a gut feeling. They've got to be ready, and that's kind of what we ask of them. There isn't that long left of the season. Want them to work hard and be as fit as possible when the season finishes, because when it comes to pre-season, it's a shorter break this time. They'll be back in. We can't do quite as much work certainly as we did last pre-season. So there's always like positives for me and ways to look at it that players might not particularly recognise, but ultimately it's always about them, and it's even the ones that maybe aren't going to be with us. Why not get yourself really fit, in decent form, performing well, so they can hit the ground running somewhere else, albeit after a break.
So Ben and Max available in your mind for contention despite the
absolutely
brilliant. That's good. That's good news. Where's Arjan Reiki in his recovery? I know he's not ready yet, but what sort of time frame are you getting on him? Because you will hopefully be back before the end of the season.
Yeah, I think, but only kind of really the last week of the season, Elliot. So still some way to go to that. But again, I was just asked a question about him with other midfield players coming in since he's had the injury, if that kind of we'd never see him again. And I said, well, there's obviously an element of that will depend on how the season pans out and his recovery. But if both things go how I would want them to, then he'll be back at Grimsby Town. So that's what we're hoping. And again, that would give me an even bigger headache, but I think he performed well for us. Obviously believe he's a good player, and I'd want him back here with us.
How's Joey Jones then done in his first week of training?
Good. I think he found first couple of days tough. Maybe just getting used to how we train or what we demand, I guess, from the players. But I think overall he's done well. I've seen what I have signed him for, and I'm sure he's hoping to get the nod on Saturday and be involved in the game. He's an experienced lad. I think he can sort of conduct himself and handle himself in the right manner. It's not an 18-year-old coming in and I got to be fussing around them all the time and make sure that they're fine and they like the food and all that sort of thing. So he'll be fine and is fitted in, no problem.
And is he someone that you think can offer more of a defensive balance in that midfield when you think you've got obviously Gavin, Scott, who are probably slightly more attack-minded in that midfield pivot, and with Ben Fox out injured and things like that, he's someone that can sort of sit alongside one of those potentially?
Yeah, he's definitely different than the ones you've just named there, I would say, and plays in a slightly different way. Got perhaps some different attributes, some that are obvious, others that maybe can be similar, but it's just more natural, I think, for him. You class him more as a sort of defensive-minded player. But having said that, seeing him make the box and score goals, that's not certainly the reason I brought him in. But he's about, and as actually, funnily enough, spoke to him about this. It's about the situations what sometimes present themselves in front of you in games. We talk a lot about if we do any kind of work on shape or a pattern of play, things like that. It might be absolutely pointless what we've told them if the opposition, maybe play a different system, defend a lot deeper or a lot higher. What you talk about and the players have to be able, we can shout from the side or you can try and give pointers, but you're also relying on players, understanding the situations that they find themselves in at different moments of the game. And that's what, for me, often the best players do, because you can quite easily then start looking for excuses, and there's nothing worse than, well, you told us this. Yeah, but the situation's changed now. We don't know for definite. We're saying what a team might have been quite consistent in, but ultimately a team may always, could change tactics to play against you.
And you've got Chesterfield coming up this weekend. They've only really won 3 out of 10 since Paul Cook came in, and it doesn't seem like things have quite clicked there. They've got quite a long injury list as well. Is now as good a time as any to face them?
I'm not convinced by that totally. I think it was natural it would take a little bit of time for Paul to get how he wants to play across, because that was probably the first thing I'd come up against his teams, and I've watched his teams, and they're very, very good more often than not. But I know he likes to play a certain way. I'm not sure he quite got that 100%, but you could certainly see his influence on the team. The injury list, yes, they've got some injuries, of course they have. I do think that list is exaggerated by some lads that have been injured for some time, or maybe one or two that, even if they fit, I ain't going to play. We have situations to deal with, and at the minute looks like we're coming through a good time. Hopefully we can keep everyone fit. So yeah, maybe certainly obviously the striker is the most obvious one. That's a big chunk out of anyone's team with the goals that he'd scored. But they have, signed a striker for money, another one. So yeah, I'm not quite going to get the violin out for them, but they had a fantastic start to the season, well, longer than a start, and now one or two teams have caught them up and surpassed them, but promotion is still very much on the cards for them.
Is that part of the thinking when you're building a squad and you're doing recruitment, where obviously Chesterfield have put a lot of money into Tishmanga and spent a lot of their budget on there? Is that something you have to consider? Because if that player gets injured, obviously, rather than spreading when you sort of doing recruitment, is that something that comes into it?
Yeah, it can do. Sometimes there's an element of a gamble that you might take. That might be a gamble in terms of, putting a lot into one player. It might be a gamble as in, running with one player in one position and then, thinking I've got one or two others that could fill in there. It's never quite as straightforward as it appears sometimes, I guess. But as I said, yes, a big miss because of the form that he was in and the goals, and I'm sure the belief that he kind of helped put in the squad. And then obviously things occurred at the football club as well that maybe just made it a bit more difficult for them in terms of certainly a smooth season. But again, they then brought Quigley in, and like I said, spent money on him. And they've had Danny Rowe missing, which again is another loss. He's a proven goal scorer. They've got a Santi back fit. I don't think they're too shabby still. Let's put it that way. But yeah, of course, the lad is going to be a miss for him.
Putting you on the spot a little bit, there's 9 games to go. How many points do you think you'll need from those 9 games to get into the playoffs?
I can honestly say I've not looked at it like that. I haven't tried working it out like that. What did I see? I saw somewhere something about 6 wins, 2 draws, 2 defeats. And I thought if that, whoever it was that had put that, and I'm not being rude, I generally can't remember who put it, I'd be disappointed if that wouldn't get you in the playoffs.
Mm.
But again, you could do that and then a couple of the other teams might just have fantastic runs and you still miss out. So like I say, I've not got into those sort of games, if you like, or playing that, looking at it too much, just trying to concentrate on ourselves. Of course, we play the game and look at the results and look at the table again, but I haven't looked too far ahead on that. Down the line, of course, hopefully we are in a good position, or we're still very much in with a chance, and then you might have to look at it and really, maybe take some gambles, I suppose, but we're not there yet.
I appreciate there's still, again, as I say, 6 weeks or so of the season to go, but who do you think in your mind would be the front runners for Grimsby Town's Player of the Year this season?
I guess the most obvious one people are going to say is John McAtee. And then you've got, I guess people would say the Waterfall, Mishi, as in Mishi, someone new to the club. Luke played, I think, more games than anyone else, I think.
He started every game this season, yeah.
Yeah. Ryan Taylor. I'm just trying to think of the ones that have probably played more often than not. Usually that's what you would expect someone to win. So yeah, they're probably the most obvious ones. That's Harry as well, I guess. Again, I think they're the ones that have played the most games for us, and others, whether it's through injury or selection, have not played quite as much.
And then just finally, across the road, Peter Swan's resigned at Scunthorpe. Are you surprised by the timing of that?
Again, it's hard because I don't know what the reasons behind it are, but in some ways it's not a major surprise. Clearly having a very difficult season, and I'm sure that in time it'll come to light a bit more the reasons why, but yeah, maybe not the biggest of surprises.